I never expected anyone outside my family to understand how it feels to live invisible. Not the kind of invisibility that comes from shyness or timidity. No, mine was deliberate, cultivated. My brother was the heir in every sense, the firstborn, the beloved, the one they polished with attention and praise. I was the servant, not by law or necessity, but by decree of my parents' belief that some children are born to serve. I learned my role early: scrub the floors, polish his shoes, fold his clothes, cook his meals, remember every detail of his life so that no one else had to. It begins with small things. I remember sitting on the edge of his bed when I was 6, brushing his hair until it shone while he played with a wooden knight that I had carved from leftover scrap. The smell of polish and wax filled the room, mingling with the faint sweetness of the sheets. "Good girl," my mother would murmur when I handed him his breakfast on a silver tray. I smiled, obedient, though inside I wondered what it would feel like to have someone brush my hair, to have someone fuss over me like that. The question was pointless. I already knew my answer: nothing would change. Childhood passed in a haze of chores and quiet observation. I learned to anticipate his moods, to refill his glass before he asked, to make sure the house smelled like perfection at all times. I learned the exact angle to place his pillow so it would be just right, the precise temperature his bathwater required, the way he liked the ketchup drizzled over his fried eggs. The only sound of my existence was the faint clatter of dishes, the soft swish of a broom, the whisper of my own thoughts. At night, I would lie awake counting the hours I had lost to service, wondering if anyone would ever see me. I tried to carve out small spaces of my own, small acts of defiance that never lasted more than a heartbeat. I once painted a watercolor of a sunset and hid it under my mattress. I left it there for months, just to remember that I existed outside of servitude, that my hands could create something for myself and not for someone else. But eventually my parents discovered it. "You have responsibilities," they said. "This is not for you." And so I erased the image from memory, if not from paper. Even adolescence offered no reprieve. I watched my brother make friends easily, speak boldly, receive praise for his talents. He played the violin and everyone complimented him. I played in silence and no one noticed. My birthday candles were blown out with quiet murmurs of congratulations I didn't deserve. My presence almost erased as though my breath could disturb the perfection of their household. I became a master of invisibility, and in invisibility, I became a silent observer of cruelty disguised as love. The way my mother's eyes softened for him and hardened for me. The way my father's voice carried authority only over my shoulders. When he announced his engagement, it should have been just another day of chores for me: setting tables, ironing napkins, polishing the silver candlesticks, arranging the flowers just so. I followed the rituals, moving silently among the petals and delicate fabrics, my hands doing what my voice never dared. And yet something shifted that day. During the family photograph, the fiancée's father lingered, scrutinizing our faces. He stopped for a fraction too long on mine. I felt the prickle of unease. My hands froze over the tray I was carrying. "You remind me of someone," he murmured, though not to me, to my brother. My brother laughed, dismissing the comment, but the words settled in my mind like seeds in dark soil. Later, he made a phone call. I caught only fragments, DNA sample results surprising. My stomach lurched, my breath uneven. The hierarchy my parents had enforced for 23 years, brick by brick, began to tremble. I felt as though I were standing in a house of mirrors, where the reflection I had known my entire life was suddenly fractured, jagged, unrecognizable. When the results were confirmed, the authority of that voice broke everything. My parents' eyes widened, not with affection, but with fear, confusion, shame. My brother's expression was unreadable, his smile frozen in a brittle mask. I held the paper with trembling hands, feeling the weight of years of servitude crash down in one instant. And yet, no one shouted, no one cried. There was no cinematic confrontation, no dramatic scene of revelation. Just silence. The kind of silence that carries the heaviest weight. After that, life changed quietly, almost imperceptibly. My parents no longer issued commands with the same certainty. My brother no longer assumed my compliance. There were small gestures of deference, questions directed at me first, pauses where they had once ignored me, but no grand reversal, no overt celebration of my newfound status. I learned quickly that power could arrive like a shadow, undeniable, but quiet. I remember the first time I noticed the subtle shift. It was a Thursday morning. I had been polishing the silver tray for his breakfast when my father asked, almost casually, if I wanted coffee. "Sit," he said, gesturing toward the dining room. It was a small act, but it carried enormous weight. For 23 years, I had not had a place at that table, not even a seat of acknowledgement. And yet now, my presence was treated as normal, deserved. The gesture felt like a seed of validation taking root inside me. Even now, the aftermath is complicated. I observe my brother navigating this new dynamic awkwardly, the same way I once watched him as a child. He smiles, hesitates, chooses words carefully, as if testing whether the rules have truly changed. My parents are cautious, measured in their affection, their gestures small and deliberate. No one says what they really feel, perhaps no one even knows. I have started to reclaim fragments of myself. I spend time alone in my room, arranging my own thoughts, making my own meals, choosing my own music. I notice small joys, the weight of a book in my hands, the smell of coffee brewing in the morning, the quiet sunlight spilling across the floor. These moments feel radical, almost illicit, because for so long, I was only ever allowed to serve someone else's experience of life. And yet, hope is tempered with consequence. The relationships I once took for granted are now strained, filled with awkward silences and unspoken regrets. I wonder if my parents will ever apologize, if my brother will ever truly see me, or if the truth will settle into our lives as an unspoken fact, acknowledged but not embraced. The years lost cannot be reclaimed, and the family I knew has been irrevocably altered. I have learned to live with the complexity of it. There is relief in recognition, a fragile satisfaction in finally being seen. But there is also sorrow, a quiet mourning for the life I might have had if I had been raised as the firstborn I truly am. The servitude I endured has left its mark, shaping my habits, my reflexes, my very sense of self. I am cautious, measured, unwilling to indulge in triumph. Still, there is a new rhythm now. I walk through the house differently, not in fear, but in awareness of my presence. I speak more softly, yet with intent. I observe more carefully, not to serve, but to understand. Authority has been ceded, not in the explosive way the world might expect, but in a deliberate, quiet realignment that changes everything in subtle, persistent ways. I write this not for vengeance, not for recognition from the world, but for myself, to mark the truth of my existence, to hold a mirror to a life that was hidden in plain sight. Some children are born to serve, yes, but some children, it turns out, are simply born to be overlooked. And sometimes, the quiet intervention of authority is enough to change everything. I do not claim to have recovered from the years of invisibility. There are days when the old reflexes return. I hesitate at doors, I defer to my brother out of habit, I fold my hands as if waiting for instruction. But the difference is subtle yet profound. Now I know the truth, and the truth gives me a choice. I can exist on my own terms. I can decide when to serve, when to assert, when to withdraw. For the first time, I am not just a shadow in someone else's life. Hope exists, yes, but it is fragile, intertwined with regret and consequence. I have found my voice, my place, my recognition, but not the years lost, the moments that can never be reclaimed. I walk a careful line between what was and what might be, aware that power, once returned, must be handled with quiet discipline. There is satisfaction in restraint, in measured influence, in observing the subtle ways family dynamics shift without spectacle. I am learning to live with that change cautiously, deliberately, and with a newfound sense of self that no one can take away. Perhaps one day, the house will feel entirely different, as though it were built for me as well as for him. Perhaps not. The past cannot be altered. But the present is mine, fragile, uncertain, and full of the quiet possibility that comes from finally being seen.